have the gorgeous, amazing, powerful, intelligent, brilliant Nineveh Madsen on the show today. Welcome, girlfriend.
Thank you, Noria, for having me on the call. I appreciate it. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you.
I am too. We have been wanting to intentionally have this moment together, and it's just been, crazy lives. We've scheduled a couple times. I've had to reschedule. Anyway, I'm so happy you've had to reschedule. I'm so glad we're here now. But just to give a little bit of history, I met Nineveh at a local Salt Lake City event that we were both speaking at. And you were just barely shifting from being in the media as a news host, and perhaps the actual role, is more specific, and you were just coming out with your new magazine. And I remember you were doing this huge shift from being in the media and the news, and it felt like you were so disconnected from those type of stories, and the values weren't in alignment. And then you got into the magazine, and that was super successful. And now you've created this incredible just space and opportunity for women to really step into their power. I'll let you tell us more about it, but I'd love to just have you share your story, because I think it's incredible of how you went from being very successful but unfulfilled to now being very successful, even more so, but really happy, mission-driven, and completely connected to purpose.
Yeah, I love this word success. We have to redefine what success means. I think we use the word success, right, Nuria, and we begin to think of monetary success, success with our titles, success with the way that we look and what we wear. And a lot of that is driven by the Instagram society. I'll just say social media society, right? The metaverse world, where now we are exposed to so much imagery and kind of others telling us what success looks like, right? I would say, in terms of my story, I've reinvented myself many times throughout the last couple of decades. So I'm going to rewind it just 25 years ago. So when I got out of high school, right, I was in college, and I ended up dropping out because I didn't want to go the traditional route at the time. And I really wanted financial independence and away from my family at the time. They were going through a divorce, unfortunately, my parents. So I wanted to just become independent, but I've always been independent, and I've never liked anybody telling me what to do. I hate it, so I got in trouble in school a lot growing up, because if I had a problem even asking permission to use the restroom in a classroom environment. And so when the teacher would say no, because that would happen, like, no, now's the time, I just walk out anyway. It's like, I'm not going to get a slip from you. So
I love that rebel side of you. I love it.
Well, rebellion, misplaced energy, right? So I got into a lot of trouble growing up. But when I chose my first career out of away from pain, I wanted to move away from pain. So it was driven away from pain versus driven towards pleasure. And I bring that up for a purpose. So I actually went to go study to become an esthetician and makeup artist. And I did that for a few years. And then I had this moment, I had this client come in, a first-time client, that looked up at me, and I was doing her eyebrows, and she said, "No one will ever know who you are if you're in this room all day." I don't know why she said it, what it was supposed to mean, but do you ever feel like you have these just magical moments? They come from, I believe, the spiritual world, and people are messengers if we listen closely enough.
Yes.
And so I took that and interpreted it as, I need to get out of this room where I'm doing facials and makeup and waxing all day. I'm meant for more. Nothing wrong with being an esthetician and makeup artist. It's just I needed to evolve out of that. So I went back to college, and I stumbled into, I won't kind of go over the whole story of how I ended up in broadcast, because that certainly wasn't my personality. If you look at my history, it wasn't like, oh, she was a cheerleader, she was super outgoing, always so beautiful and put together. I mean, went through some real weird phases with my hair. I didn't know how to do my makeup. And, I even went through a lot of bullying in high school because I was different, I was an immigrant. And I mean, this was back in the day. Kids were cruel then and they are now,
There are
right? We
now.
still
And
have,
I got some of that too, girl, being an immigrant and just different, spoke Spanish, born somewhere else. So yeah,
you got it,
happens.
you got it. And it's strange to think about, it's like, okay, so I'm from a different area of the world and I guess that gets made fun of. But when you're the new kid, that can happen. So fast forward, I end up in broadcast news. And I want to explain the story and all the synchronicities that occurred to make that happen. And I discovered my voice and I discovered my love and passion for storytelling. I wasn't really in love with the idea of being on television at all. And in fact, I was really triggered by people who wanted to be in broadcast because they wanted to be on TV. And
Mm,
that's driven by significance. We're all
yes.
driven by different things. We all want significance. Let's just admit it. I just didn't want that to be the driving force for me. It's a driving force for a lot of people who work in media, is that they want that significance, the fame, the notoriety. And I really fell in love with storytelling. And I was
That's
surprised
beautiful.
yeah, I got a job as a news anchor and reporter, first gig making $19,000 a year in Yuma, Arizona. And then a couple of years later, I got promoted and ended up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and spent about close to, 8+ years at the local market there at one of the television stations. And I just kept getting promoted. And I finally ended up with my own show. It was a 4 o'clock daytime show. And Noria, the show didn't even exist at the time. So it wasn't like I was replacing another anchor. All the spots were full.
Wow.
And I had a vision. I'm like, I need my own show. And I had a vision of what the show would actually be. I thought
I
about
love that.
introducing the market to something very different. I said, Utah needs some flavor. And
Yes.
I said, I see media shifting and changing. I see the future because my father works in technology, and then I'll wrap him into the story in a little bit. But he said, I think the media model, the way it exists today, is an old model. And that's when people started podcasting and, audio media became more popular, digital media. And I pitched the idea of us having a podcast, a digital show. They weren't about it. I didn't care if it was on TV or not. I just said, I think we can produce content in a different way. And anyway, I ended up advocating.
How amazing, by the way, that you at that time, that it was not a popular thing. It was not something that everyone knew about. You were being so innovative. So that rebellious energy you had in a good way was also showing up there of like, let's break this. Let's disrupt something that's so old and boring. I love that you said bring flavor into it.
And you know what? You're wearing hoop earrings. I'm wearing hoop earrings. Before I was actually hired in Salt Lake City, and I did find out later, I was one of the first. When I say women of color, I mean in Utah.
For sure.
I was the first. It was all Caucasian,
Yes.
and they hired me. Yes, I was good, and I was actually told, "You're hired because you look different." Okay,
Wow.
it is what it is. Fine. You wanted more diversity in the newsroom, and I can appreciate that. I was like, well, let's not just hire because of the way I look. I'm also very good at what I do. How about
Yes,
that?
I'm talented.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just an interesting industry. So here I am. I'm 8 years at the station. I was sharing my vision. I mean, I believe I'm a visionary with them, but you have a general manager, has been there forever, still there, and a female news director at the time who had a lot of masculine energy. That's the best way to describe it. Guards up, never any vulnerability. I can feel for her now because I've been out of the business for over about a decade. I understand that, like, as women try to figure out what their roles are, especially in corporate America, they kind of like redesign who they are. They shift into masculine energy, and they think their feminine energy is weak, right?
Yes.
So
Lots of masks and pretense, and it's all protection.
it is all protection. But it was
And it's sad because of the fear, right? Like, and you and I can see that now, but yes, it's sometimes very difficult to deal with, even as another woman, in being in those situations of how are we not empowering and coming together? Rather, I'm getting scrutinized, or, it's just the opposite of what you would hope for. But yes, at the end of the day, I truly believe it's just the fear, just that they're surviving because no one's gotten a seat at the table. They do. So then it's like, I'm protecting it, they become these lions, and it's sad and true, and hoping we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I like this concept of thinking about what's the win-win, because nobody has to lose in any situation. Now, unfortunately, the culture of mainstream media is rooted in what I call scarcity mindset, because look at the type of content that they produce and reproduce over and over again, right? They capitalize on fear. That's just that is what they sell, is fear, because it's very easy from our brains are still, it haven't evolved, right? Like our brains haven't evolved, right? From like a primal standpoint. So it's very easy to trigger our fight or flight response. And we can do that through storytelling and information. And so I believe, mainstream media sells fear. I'm not saying information isn't important. Pertinent information is important, but that's a massive responsibility when you are impacting the behavior of people watching that information. You want to take that role very seriously, right? So it didn't really align with me anymore. And so I pitched the daytime show, and I had a vision of having a show and a female co-host. And I said, we could introduce topics that would help women in the state of Utah, because it's right before the newscast. But listen, they're like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. Let's sign the contract. We go for it. Instead, they give me an older gentleman male anchor. I'm like, I don't need a man. I was like, I don't need. It was pretty much a solo show that ended up just moving him to a segment because they realized that I was like very dominating, and I pretty much could, unfortunately continuously made him kind of look idiotic, which was not my intention. But he wasn't very dominant. So they ended up giving him his own segment. But the show was not what I had envisioned whatsoever. And that's when this idea of I'm going to create my own media empire. Okay, come on. I have no capital, have no money. I started Her Magazine on my iPad at work. And I just got so passionate about it. I got people writing for it. People really believed in the mission. And so when the station found out about that, they were very angry. They saw it as competitive, and they asked, do you have advertisers? I'm like, well, I'm very thank you for believing that I could get advertisers at this point, but no one's reading this thing. This was my vision for the show, but because I couldn't fulfill that purpose, I had to take it somewhere else. And so
to be expressed in a different way.
Exactly. Things didn't end well, unfortunately. It did not end well. It ended with me having a lot of anxiety because I felt like I was in a prison. And so I left in the middle of a contract, and it was pretty ugly in terms of station management, poor leadership, because I know a lot about leadership now. Very poor leadership. I left. There was a lot of cleaning house that happened. It's all good. I'm so happy and grateful for my experience in broadcast, Nuria, because I gained an incredible amount of skill set because it was such a fast-paced environment, and I could produce results much faster than people who were raised in a typical corporate environment. So I had this tenacity and hunger and drive that was pretty excessive.
I love it, girl. You're on fire.
I'm on fire. I'm like, let me tone it down. So that's
no. I love the big energy from you, and that we need more of that, from you, even finding your voice in a way and how beautiful that you had to go through that process just to help you really get clear and be able to share it and express it. But it's so totally okay that you have that huge of a drive in that you want to play big. And I invite more people to play in that space, more women, more everybody, so no, you keep your fire lit up all the way, all the way.
I appreciate it. So I've reinvented myself many times. After the magazine, I actually closed it down. Why? I'll tell you why. Very new in business. I didn't have any capital. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm sure you've been through this before, right? It's not like you knock out the first idea out of the park.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a media empire. And my father is an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur since I was in high school. So he actually used to be employee. He transitioned into entrepreneurs. So I kind of watched him build multiple businesses. And then also, I don't want to call it failure, but shut down businesses, learn from them, open a new one. And he came to me and he said, you're going to need to raise a lot of capital if you want to build this, media empire that you're envisioning. Why don't you come and work for me and do social media content and blogging? You're experienced in content marketing, whether you realize it or not. And we don't have any marketing at our company. We have no marketing. So you had a company and they were like at multiple 7 figures in revenue at the time. And so I said, okay. And I went there and I was getting paid as a contractor at first. So I went from making pretty good money and super blessed that I had the opportunity to transition into my father's company, right? Because I'm like, I need to make some money. He's like, come do social media. I'm like, I could do that in my sleep. $4,000 a month as a contractor. So I went from making, close to 6 figures in news to just dropping here. And he basically said to me, this is an opportunity and you decide what you make of it. You decide how hungry you want to be at it. And he was really patient until one day I came and I said, I've got a vision. I think I should build your entire marketing infrastructure and whatever else you need in the business. And he's like, okay, let's go. And so I spent 8 years with his company and really aggressively helping him build the company for the last 5 years. And I learned so much about leadership, building teams. I had a front row seat to being an entrepreneur without taking the high risk that entrepreneurs do. So I would describe myself as an intrapreneur, a very driven intrapreneur. And I felt like I had a lot of freedom. So the beautiful thing about my father is not micromanagerial. He's like, here's the budget, figure it out. And so I just really thrived in this space of figuring it out. And I made so many mistakes, so many. It was like ridiculous. In a regular corporate environment, I'm like, pretty sure like I would have been fired. I mean, not the type of mistake. You have a budget, you go, you make a decision and you're like, wrong hire. Sorry, dad, I gotta fire the person. But he never would tell me like, you have to fire them. He was like, well, you made the decision, you take accountability. He gave me a lot of leeway because he's an entrepreneur and he's made many mistakes too.
Sure.
So
what a great lesson as a father too, that he hands-on gave you the freedom, empowered you and so much sovereignty to just learn.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. But, and I know that even though all of the lessons you learned, I know you also helped so much because you and I have had conversations and I know you helped that company grow tremendously.
Yeah, I'm really excited for where the company's at. I'm a shareholder. So, I was fortunate enough to get stock options. It's, cybersecurity SaaS model. The multiples in tech are insane. And so after 8 years of not only building a marketing team, and when I say there were so many people involved in helping me get there, right? So I, coupled with the incredible people we hired, we built out, in terms of what I ended up overseeing, wasn't just marketing, but it was, marketing, customer success, the tech support team, HR, recruiting. There were so many areas of the business that I got to help build. It doesn't mean I did all the work, but help build. So bring in other leaders and work with them on bringing things to life and kind of figuring it all out together. And as a result of that, and the different strategies that company was able to scale to, I don't want to give the number away because it's a private company, but let's just say multiple 8 figures, and they'll be well on their way to 9 figures, no problem. So
Woo!
really
That's
excited.
amazing. And you were a big part of that. That's just next level.
Well, listen, Noria, I reached another point, interestingly enough, where I was no longer feeling fulfilled because cybersecurity is not my passion. I mean, I know it's necessary. It's my father's passion. I mean,
yes.
He is a technologist. This is his background. He has like multiple patents. I don't understand how the guy's brain works. It's kind of insane. I don't really take after him much, maybe just a little bit because he's very musical and creative. That was like, wow, he's just so experienced that he is able to create a product, and he's able to see in the future in terms of what the world needs as we head into this metaverse driven, AI driven, data driven, technology driven world. We're really going to have to secure data in transit. I mean, I think you're seeing already what's happening, right? With like phishing scams and how, because people are not prepared for what's to come.
Yeah.
So he loves it.
Super
It's
important.
amazing. Very important, amazing to go to market with a product like that. But at the end of the day, I did not feel fulfilled because I shut down what I originally wanted to do. So I was going through just this phase, and actually been in that phase for probably 3 or 4 months, where just feeling just pressure and anxiety. And I'm like, I have to get out, right? I know what this is. I've felt this before. And I mentioned that because if people feel that way, they need to listen to their body. They need to listen to that voice. If you are not expressing yourself and pursuing your purpose, you're headed in the wrong direction from a mental health perspective.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good what you just said. You're heading in the wrong direction from a mental health perspective because that purpose keeps calling you. I feel like every time where I've had a similar moments like yours of like, you're being called for something. If you're not listening, and if you're not choosing to go down that path, it will mess with you. It will. So I love that. It's like finding the awareness to listen. And, there are miracles all around us every day. There are signs, like you said, all around us. It's just if we're there present to actually pay attention to what's happening.
Exactly. So I actually left the company about 3 months ago. I'm a board of advisors, so I'm still involved and talk to my father a couple times a week, still mentoring a couple of the people there. Some of them have joined my new program. And so like, no.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right?
So cool.
But what ended up happening is I reached this point, and then my husband is also an entrepreneur. I guess I'm just surrounded by.
These guys are legit the power couple. Like people, people are like, oh, we're a power couple. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You have not met Nineveh. And she has the real power couple going on here. So you guys are fantastic.
I appreciate it. I basically was, an employee. I mean, more than that, but I wanted to make sure we had a solid income while my husband was building the business, right? Because from experience, I don't know the timeline for you, but for him, it took him a decade to crack the first 7 figures, right? And I know 7 figures sounds like a lot of money to most people, but it's not like it's take home. You have operating expenses, you have employees, you're investing a lot and making mistakes, and right. Yes. So once you crack,
that's not the profit. That's not the bottom line.
That's not the profit. I said revenue, exact revenue. So once he hit that, crack the code, there's like almost like this, you crack the code, You know what I'm talking about in business?
Yeah.
And you're like, boom, I figured it
Yes.
out, right? So, you know, he's like, babe, I know you helped your father's company scale, you know, and I love the
I
mission.
need you.
I need you. So I have a lot of experience in marketing, and let's say like I'm customer experience driven. I don't have like a sales background, but I really understand marketing in terms of the pull method, not necessarily digital advertising. I'm very well versed in the pull methodology of marketing, client experience, and then I'm extremely operational, system oriented, process, building teams, leading teams, scaling the company that way. And so he came to me. I love what they're doing. I've always felt so connected to fitness, nutrition, and mindset. Those are like the three core pillars and the areas that we focus on in our company, which is called Supra Human. And initially he came to me and said, why don't you launch the female side? I was like, that sounds cool. So it wasn't the original plan to go play COO at the company. I went in with a mentality of taking a break, taking a break. I don't know if I know how to take a break. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like not work for 3 months. And this is what my father said to me. He's like, oh, really? So you're leaving to take a break? Like you're gonna take a sabbatical? And I said, yeah, I'm like pretty burnt out. I need to relax. And he said, Nineveh, you don't know how to relax. It's not part of your personality. I don't see you working part-time. He's like, but I support you fully. Good luck. And I'm so blessed that he was so supportive. He wasn't mad about me leaving. I said, I'm gonna go help my husband. So I'm gonna go launch the female side of the company, the female protocol. So Supra Woman. And from a marketing perspective, we wanted to make sure that women were aware that there was a space for them inside the company. I go to do that and I start digging into the business and I see all the opportunity for like revenue expansion and how we can optimize process to scale. And I'm like, let me help you with this. I'm really into building and scaling businesses. So I've got a lot of different passions, Noria. And what I've learned, and the reason why I share this is like, there's nothing wrong with reinventing yourself. And there's nothing wrong with having multiple passions and being able to express those passions either with your company or inside a company and with hobbies as well.
That's power. Yeah. And I love that you say that. It reminds me of when I was about to launch my company a few years ago, my coach, I was sitting down at a meeting with her and she said, what are all your passions? And so I named them all, traveling, giving back to the community. I want to build something different in my industry, and just named a bunch of things. And she said to me, this was like one of the best questions she ever asked me. She said, what makes you think that you have to separate everything from each other? Like, what life can you create that includes everything involved and live that? And it just really hit me, like, you're right. I can do all the things maybe, and I'm not talking about like becoming a mother and things. I feel like there's a season for everything. I don't know that there's life balance, but there's seasons, and so, but that really woke me up. It woke me up to something new.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love what you said about seasons. There is a season to everything. I'm a mother. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, and there was a season when she was a newborn, right? There's a season to our bodies. There's a season to, when we're building something. It's not always at equilibrium all the time, right? You're not just the straight line. It's like these ups and downs, hills and valleys, and people need to recognize that. And people need to listen to that voice. I'm a big believer in self-care. I don't work like a lunatic. That's something that I've learned, because less is more. A lot of us are really, you meet those people and they're, like we said, life gets busy, but their calendars are always full. I think half of that work is like unnecessary work. So what I've actually learned out of this transition is like, what's going to have the biggest ROI and the biggest impact? And I've learned not to allow my calendar to rule my day or rule my life. I can adjust it. It's not black and white, right?
Yeah.
And I realized in the past that I made myself busy because I was distracting myself from the real work, which was doing the inner work and actually asking myself, what do you want to do? Who do you want to become? And why are you playing so small? And it's like,
Wow.
it
That
was
just gave me chills. That was a mic drop moment, girl. I hope you know that. That was so good. So good.
Thank you. Yeah. And I want people to realize like the real work is the inner work. And we talk about mindset, but mindset is mental health. So those two terminologies are interchangeable. I'm really passionate about mental health and the physiology of the body and optimizing it. I always say, like, superhuman, what do you guys do? And we say, okay, on a simplistic level, we're like fitness, nutrition, mindset. I'm like, here's what it is. It's a virtual and digital company, right? That is focused on total body optimization, mind body optimization. So we're like a virtual and digital HPC, human performance center for the
That's
mind and
amazing.
body. I mean, that's the ultimate vision, actually, is to think of it like HPC. We're building a human performance center from a digital and virtual perspective, and then eventually we will physically as well. And I think
You know
there's
what I love so much?
Hmm.
Um, I just want to point something out. I love so much that your program and everything that you and John have built has been around from the inside out, so that you are taking that mental health aspect. I think that those worlds are very separated sometimes, especially in the fitness world. I see so much going on in fitness and so many different coaches and different programs, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that you guys have actually really taken that aspect and you're bringing it home. So I feel like any type of transformation, it's going to start from the inside out. And so the fact that you're paying attention to that and that's a part of the program is very powerful. Are you feeling like that is the biggest difference in the program that you guys have created?
Well,
Or tell me more about that, because I think it's brilliant.
Well, how are we differentiating ourselves in the marketplace, right? That's the question. And I'm not a fitness coach. I'm not, I don't,
Yeah.
it's not about that, right? And my husband comes from, he played in the NFL, he comes from the gym space, he owned multiple gyms and understands fitness and nutrition inside out. But, we own a company, and right now we're at about 20 people. We have a head of human performance, we have phenomenal nutrition coaches, and everything is customized for the customer. They come in because everybody is different and we're all meeting them at a different place. We typically work with high performers. I mean, that is our market right now, is working with high performers who, they're not interested in free. They're not interested in going on YouTube and figuring it out, or, their $99 program. And no, mostly we work with entrepreneurs, high performing, high achievers who want to cut through the noise and want to get results. And so it's customized, and you have a one-on-one coach, and you have that accountability. And we really teach people to change their mindset around dieting in general, because everyone's got this like, so what's my diet? What do I eat? Do I like not get to eat a burger? I'm like, well, you can eat a burger or not eat a burger. What we need you to understand is nutrition and how the body responds to nutrition, and how the body responds when we eat too much. We gain weight, we get inflamed, right? And kind of changing the mindset and approach about, this is not a 6-week challenge, guys. This
Yeah.
is total body optimization so that you can have better health. It's about longevity. And so we market it because we have to reach the customer first. We market it like, hey, you need to lose weight. You do, come on in. But as we get them in and we take them through that customer journey, our clients, we're at about 600 customers now worldwide, they begin to realize, wow, this is so much more than a fitness program.
Mm.
We encompass mindset by having like weekly mindset coaching calls. And then we're also partnered with one of the most phenomenal mental programmers out there. His name is William Lamb. So we're partnered with him on the mindset stuff, because John and I understand mindset at a simplistic level. We're coached in it. However, the true master at mental programming is William Lamb. So we actually have a program called Upgrade X. And so when people are ready to ascend and do the unconscious reprogramming work, what we really teach people is that things have to change at the identity level. We look the way we do, or our physiology is the way it is because of what's going on here in our minds, what our beliefs are about ourselves, about what we deserve. It's all in here in our mind, but we're approaching it from physical because people are vain and that's okay. And it's easy to explain, you need to lose some weight. But the real transformation is happening in the mind, and then that reflects in the outside world. So everything is a projection of what's happening inside our mind, right? You know that.
100%. Yes. Powerful. I know you just had an event as well. So and remind me, you started this with your husband how long ago? It hasn't even been a year, has it?
So he's been in business in the like physical transformation business. So that's fitness, and nutrition strictly only, for about a decade. And a couple of years ago, we partnered with William Lamb on the mindset aspect. And I helped rebrand the company about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So I said, this is much bigger. I told my husband, I said, is this much bigger? I said, I'm noticing you're spending a lot of advertising dollars. Is this how you want to brand yourself? The time it was called Athletic and Fit or Athletic AF. I said, I think what you're doing is much bigger than this. So I went to go rebrand the entire company. And I always say I connected to like the spiritual realm. And I started really thinking about the future. And that's where this Supra Human was born. Like, that's what we're doing. We're helping people become superhuman. And what does that mean? If you look it up in the dictionary, it means people who have capabilities beyond the human level. That's what it is. We want to teach people how to like completely unleash and become 1%ers in their bodies and their minds. And we can change the world if we do that.
Absolutely. It's so powerful. And I love it. And I know you just had an event you were telling me about. So let's talk a little bit about that. It was your first one for the women, right?
Yes. So we have events through our Upgrade X series. And I decided that, the day before our Upgrade X series events, we were going to have a female only event. Because we connect in a different way. I love men. I love their masculine energy. I love partnering with them on things. But I think females still want community together. They want to feel supported. So we just had an event. We had an incredible lineup of speakers, but I approached it a little differently because I see a lot of business conferences out there and it's very masculine driven. I'm like, how do we integrate the masculine and the feminine? So you're going to hear from like the quote unquote boss, babes. I'm not saying I like that or don't like that terminology. But you're going to hear from all these like hyper successful women. They're going to tell you how they like the grit they had to like build it. At the same time, we did some breath work. We did a special like intention stick ceremony. This is what I'm wearing a necklace. It's called an intention stick. So we did that ceremony and we just integrated some feminine aspects into it where we were like, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable and cry. And so we had people in the audience like crying, tearing up, having breakthroughs.
Emotions. I love it.
Yes. I've learned to embrace emotions instead of like stuffing them down inside. When you stuff your emotions and you don't process them, they manifest as physical symptoms. It creates disease in the body. But we're not taught that. We're taught to like put on a tough face, put on a brave face. And that kind of messaging is actually impacting people's mental health. So we have to completely transform the way we even approach work and how we work as human beings. This is not the industrial age anymore. This 9 to 5 mentality, it doesn't work. It's a technologically advanced world and we haven't caught up to it. And we just need to change the way that we live. And we need to incorporate things that are going to help us thrive versus just surviving.
Oh, I love it. Everything you just said and having this beautiful program. And I know we got more in the depth of it, but it's so important for me to talk about it because there's not there's nothing like it that I've come across. And so I think it's powerful. And I know that we're coming to an end of our time together today. But before we go, I would love for you to share for the people who are out there listening to this and are connecting to what you've gone through, that, you know, you've transformed your life a few times. You have literally woken up and said, I'm no longer fulfilled. I'm not finding purpose on this. And you have made a new decision. For the people who are out there in the middle of this, what would be the advice that you give them?
You need to make sure that what you're doing aligns with your values, and your values can change over time. You know, I rearranged my values. And so every decision that I make in my life, I look at my core values and what's my value system, and that's what drives my decision making. So if it doesn't align, I don't say yes and I don't do it, because when you say yes to the things that don't align with you, that hurts you spiritually, and that's when you suffer. And so I would say, you know, advice for people maybe going through a change, right? Or going through the transition right now, that it's normal to feel very uncomfortable. Change is not easy. Change can be challenging, especially with the way our brains work. You know, that fight or flight or that freeze, your body may think it's in danger and it's not. Your mind will play tricks on you. So you're just going to have to know, one, it's normal to feel the resistance and the doubt and the worry, because I go through all of that. I don't want people listening to this episode thinking, wow, she's so strong and powerful, and I'm not her. I'm exactly like you. So, hey, you know, a month ago, I'm like crying, I'm praying, I'm like, God, help me through this. I'm so scared. What am I doing? And it's just like, okay, I got to have faith. I got to trust. I got to let go of control. And I just got to believe. I have to walk in faith, right? Just one day at a time. Don't think about 5 years from now, 2 years from now. What is this going to be a month from now? Just one day at a time. So my advice is just to take it one day at a time and focus on the vision. Focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want. Just focus on what you want and keep moving in that direction. That's it.
Powerful. So beautifully said. And that is what you will end up attracting. So I love your advice. I love your story. I wish we had much more time. The very last thing, though, I would love to, for our listeners to have access to you, or perhaps they're, thinking about wanting to make some sort of transformation with their physical and mental health. Where can they find you or your program?
Just go to suprahuman.com. So SUPRA human.com, or find us on Instagram, easy enough. So my handle is at Nineveh Madsen. My husband's is John Madsen Official. We're very active on Instagram, and you'll find links to our company there too. But we'd love to talk to you. Yeah. If you're interested in learning more, honestly, just hit me in my DMs and I'll connect you with someone on my team.
Amazing. We'll also tag your website onto our notes. And thanks so much for spending the time with me today. I know that conversations we have can be so in depth, and we both have a lot of things in common, but one of them is really being able to empower women and people to get to the next level in life and help them think differently. Get them out of their victim state. You know, the victim mentality, it's like, no, you get to be the creator of your life. And I know we both feel very powerfully connected to that. So I appreciate and love you, my friend. And thanks everybody for listening.